بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسول الله Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good evening, brothers, sisters, friends, and supporters of the Jamaat Al Muslimeen. We are here once again for another lecture, and today we have the honor and the pleasure of having Sister Masudah Muhammad with us this evening, and the topic would be on drug prevention. Masudah Muhammad is a purpose-driven, vibrant young woman leader, professional, social entrepreneur, and mental health practitioner, passionate about service, supporting youths, and advocating for violence prevention. She holds a master's degree in clinical social work from the University of the West Indies and a bachelor's degree in social work with an emphasis on drug prevention strategies. She has several professional certificates in stress management, cognitive behavioral therapy, and management strategies. As an experienced social worker, educator, and mentor, she uses her experience and competencies to delicately guide individuals through some of life's most harrowing challenges and liberating experiences. She works with a diverse cross-section of populations throughout Trinidad and Tobago and is passionate about ensuring a high quality of life for the people she serves. Those of you can follow her on TikTok, Empower Me. Is that the correct handle? She's on Facebook.
Empower Me by Masudah.
Empower Me by Masudah. She's also on Facebook. And for better context, this is a sister that I have known for almost 2 decades. And seeing her transformation and seeing her growth over the years, I am indeed very proud to say, hey, I know that sister. So I bring to the forefront at this time our featured speaker, Sister Masudah Muhammad. Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome, assalam, and thank you for having me. And I am very excited to be here to discuss this topic because it's been impacting us and our children, our families. You know, when we speak of substance use prevention, it's more than just drugs. You know, it's about social structures and how it's affected and how our lives can be negatively impacted by using drugs. And so for this session, yes, I'm here to provide you with some information, but I also want your feedback. So please feel free to unmute your mics and join the conversation because I want to hear you, answering questions and asking questions as well. I would really love some engagement, right? So it's not just me spreading information, but this is more of a conversation. So I'm going to share my screen and I have an icebreaker. So if I have to unmute your mics, you don't need to necessarily put on your cameras, but I want you to answer some questions from my icebreaker, right? Let's have some fun while we learn today. Okay. All right, so please indicate if you are seeing my screen.
No. Well, yes.
Yeah, you seen it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. Wonderful. All right, so I'm taking off my video. And so this is the presentation outline, right? We're going to play an icebreaker game. So I want to test your knowledge, see how much you know about drugs. We're going to define what are drugs and discuss in details the different types of drugs. So for any time throughout the presentation, you can stop and ask me questions, right? So are you ready to play the game? Everybody ready to see if they are able to identify these pictures and say whether it's a drug or not?
Inshallah, we'll try.
Yes. Inshallah, right? Okay, so this is the first picture. Is this a drug or it's not a drug? What is it?
That is broccoli.
Looking like herbs.
You sure this is a herb?
Once at plant-based, is that I don't know. Can't say. It's plant-based, but I don't know.
You're not sure? Are you ready for the revelation?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay,
Yeah.
so it is broccoli. Right?
Shahid, Papa.
So congratulations. Congratulations for those who was able to identify it. So no, broccoli is not a drug, it's a vegetable, it's good for our health, right? But what about this picture? Is this a drug? It's not a drug. What is this?
Well, that looking like a bone.
That looks like the starting of a pipe.
A bottle, not a pipe, a bottle.
It's also it's a bottle, but is this a drug? No. So
I
let
don't
us see what this is. This is the vaping devices.
Well, I definitely wouldn't know that.
I really testing your skills today, right? So these are the vaping devices, and we're going to get more in depth with the vaping devices throughout today's presentation. All right, so what about this? Is this a drug?
That looking like
There's
a
a grinder
mechanical
with
something.
marijuana.
Bob Marley say, herb is a plant.
It's a plant. So this is a little bit different. So it may not necessarily be a drug, but it's an apparatus, a paraphernalia, right? So this is what we use to grind the marijuana. So correctly stated, it's a grinder, right? And our last picture for today. What is this? Is this a drug? It's not a drug. What is it?
Looking
That's
like
a mango.
Shahida, I don't know that, and that is my favorite.
You sure this is a mango?
It looking like a rash.
It's something
That
resembling
looking
a
like
drug.
the sun.
That looking like a rash to me.
So we ready to see we ready for the revelation?
Mm-hmm.
Boom, it's mango.
Oh my God. What kind of mango, Shahid?
That looking like a rose mango.
It's more like long mangoes, rose mangoes. It could be either a rose mango or long mango, right? But it's not a drug, so we can eat this. It's good for our health. Makes
If
us
that
feel
was a
good,
drug, I'm an addict.
right? Right?
Mhm.
So just by looking at our icebreaker, do you think drugs is easy for us to identify?
When shown in totality, not
When shown in totality, right? So this is why it's important for us to have an idea of what drugs look like and what it is about, because drugs can be a little bit tricky, just like this game, right? So it can be tricky. We have different types of drugs. It looks different. It smells different, right? So it's very important for us to have that level of awareness to know like what drugs are. But can anybody tell me what is a drug or what they think drugs are before we jump into the definition of a drug?
anything that will cause intoxication or delusions or just,
Right.
you know,
Right? Yes. So anything that can cause intoxication or delusion, or hallucinating. Yeah. Anybody else before we move forward?
even medicated, even prescribed medication,
Mhm.
one could get addicted to it for
Yeah.
painkillers.
And I like that you use the word addicted, because you can become addicted to drugs or even habits, right? Because we have addictive behaviors as well, such as pornography, food, work, all these different types of addictive behaviors. But when we define in drugs, this is the definition, right? So they are chemicals. Drugs are chemicals and substances that affect both our mind and our body. And if we were to use these drugs for a prolonged period of time, a long period of time, it can lead to dependence, chemical dependence, physiological type of dependence. And if you were to overdose on any drug, this can lead to your death. And this overdose does not have to mean that it's cigarettes or these different types of drugs, but it has to be, or any type of drug that you take in a large dosage or you overdose on it, then that can lead to your death, right? So this can be like over-the-counter drug. So we have drugs in different categories, and these drugs are legal drugs and illegal drugs. So legal drugs are drugs that we can access over the counter in our pharmacies or through our doctors or healthcare professionals. As well as we have drugs that is legal, but it's not healthy for our body. So like caffeine, where we can find caffeine?
Coffee, tea,
And
soft
the famous,
drinks.
yes, and energy drinks, right? So some of us like to drink energy drinks to get that additional energy, but it has caffeine in it. And this caffeine is very negative for our health. We have marijuana, cigarettes, vaping devices, all of which is unhealthy, but it's legal. Then we have illegal drugs, alcohol, marijuana. Now, marijuana is decriminalized, so we'll get into what that means. We have cocaine, heroin, ecstasy, LSD, ketamine, methamphetamines, all these different drugs are considered illegal. And if you are found with these drugs, there is a final charge attached to that. And we have like different categories of drugs. So we have drugs that are stimulants, depressants, and hallucinogens. And a stimulant drug is drugs that speed up our nervous system, speed up all the nerve endings and everything. So our body starts to see things and behave in a more fast pace, like our friend here in the middle. You see how he's moving very, very hyper assertive. So these drugs contribute to that. So caffeine, amphetamine, nicotine, cocaine, diet pills, all these drugs lead to stimulating effects. And on the street, you will hear them say uppers, right? And then we have depressants. So depressants does not make you depressed, but it slows down your brain, it slows down your nervous system. So like drugs like alcohol, vodka, heroin, tranquilizer, sleeping pills, and a percentage of marijuana. So it can have you walking backwards like my friend up here, or feeling a little out of this world, or the world might be shaky, right? Because your body is slowed down. And then we have this drug, hallucinogens. Now, hallucinogen is a little bit different because hallucinogens, it alters our state of consciousness. And this means that our auditory and visual sensation is affected. So we can see things and hear things that aren't there, or even feel things on our body like formication, which is like ants or little ticks running on our skin. And we might think that these ticks are there and it's crawling on our body, but it's not really there. We may even think that someone is stalking us, or we may need to hide from people. All of these things contribute to hallucinating effects, right? So drugs such as LSD, ecstasy, magic mushrooms. We have the hybrid marijuana, which is a type of marijuana that contributes to hallucinating effect. Have anybody ever heard about the green man?
Mm-hmm.
The green man.
Yeah, but that's only when you mix it with the white.
Right, but also it is marijuana. Right? Yeah, so marijuana, and it does have marijuana mixed with different types of drugs. So you can mix different types of drugs together, right? To give you more stimulating. And we can have drugs that have stimulating and depressant type of effects. So some persons may use marijuana and nicotine mixed together. So some persons mix up these drugs, right? What we see now is we have the synthetic type of drug, right? So this is where they create these drugs in a lab. And so now we're going to look at the different types of drugs and the effect it have on your body. The first drug is tobacco. Anybody know about tobacco? Right?
It is a plant and is used for cigarettes.
Yeah. So it's a plant and it's used for cigarettes, but the plant it's grown specifically for its large leaves. So if you look in the corner here, you will see the leaves of the plant, right? However, it is dried and fermented, but it has over 5,000 chemicals in the tobacco processing system, and 60 of these chemicals are highly cancerous in nature. And we're going to look at the type of chemicals that is placed in the tobacco processing system. So the ingredient that has you addicted to tobacco is nicotine. And nicotine is a clear type of chemical, right? So you can't see the chemical that is placed in there. But this is why persons are addicted. Now, tobacco have different products, not just the traditional cigarette. We have the cigars, the vaping devices. The vaping devices don't have tobacco, but it has a high concentration of nicotine. So it becomes highly addictive because of that. Then we have the traditional hookahs. Some persons may chew the tobacco. Have you seen in those Western movies where persons will chew something dark and they spit it out?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that is the tobacco. It has the same chemicals and everything. And then we have persons who snuff it like cocaine, dip it and snuff it. So it's not only used in a traditional cigarette. So what is some of the chemicals found inside of the tobacco? We have cadmium, which is battery acid, lighter fluids, ingredients in hair dye. Yes, all of these ingredients is found inside of a cigarette or tobacco product. Nail polish, acetone. So if you ever been to like a salon and you're smelling that strong chemical in this in the shop, right? This is the acetone. This is what is placed in the cigarette. Formaldehyde. This is the chemical that they use to embalm dead bodies in a funeral home. This is what they place inside the cigarette, right? Ammonia, which is used in household cleaners. Materials to pave a road, which is tar, and lead, which is found in batteries, and of course carbon monoxide. So all of these dangerous chemicals are placed inside of the cigarette, and it contributes, ingredients in rat poison as well, right? So these chemicals are inside of a cigarette. So how can that affect your body? So it can lead to cancer of up to 90% of your organs can become cancerous as a result of smoking or using tobacco products. Cancers in your mouth, right? It can cause teeth decay because it can break down the enamel. It can cause loss of tooth. It can cause your mouth to develop ulcers. You can get throat cancer, stomach cancer, ulcers, neck cancer, tongue cancer. So all these different types of cancers and chronic diseases such as stroke, blindness, gum infections, all these different types of ailments can come out of just using tobacco products because of the chemicals. So this is what throat cancer looks like and mouth cancer, right? It can also cause harm to your baby if you are pregnant or if you are inhaling secondhand smoke. Now, secondhand smoke has over 250 chemicals out of these 500 plus up to 7,000 chemicals found inside of the cigarette. But when you inhale it from someone who is smoking, or you are in an environment where there are chronic smokers, and you inhale that smoke into your lungs, then you can develop symptoms of a natural smoker. So like cancer in your lungs, trouble breathing. If you have asthma, it can increase your asthmatic attacks, and it can also contribute to these types of cancers as well, right? So it does not only affect your lungs. I know some people believe that it affects their lungs. It does, because you are inhaling this toxin, but it also affects different parts of your body. And we have the right now. So before I jump into the e-cigarette, right? Can anybody tell me, do you think smoking is healthier than vaping?
No,
No.
smoking is not healthier than vaping.
Vaping is less
Right.
harmful, but it takes longer, but they might have the same effects eventually.
Right? So, okay, I'll tell you the difference, right? So with the traditional cigarettes, we have 120 years of data to determine how it affects the different organs in your body. With the vaping device, we only have a decade, which is 10 years. So in terms of long-term data, we don't have that type of research to determine how it affects your health. So we can't say at this time that it's healthier than smoking, because we are seeing where the vaping devices has a lot of negative health complications. It's causing negative health complications on your lungs. And it's very negative for your lungs. So we're seeing where there's a lot of issues with the vaping devices, even though the tobacco companies are saying that this is healthier than smoking, right? 120 years ago, they said that the cigarette is very healthy for your body and there's no cause for concern, right? So we've seen a repeat of history here. Now, the vaping devices, there's different shapes and sizes. We have some that is shaped like a pen or a flash drive, right? And it's very easy for persons to have on their person. However, it's battery powered and it heats a liquid into an aerosol that the user inhales. So the liquid has different types of flavors, and this is what is attracting our youth. So it has flavors such as candy, watermelon. Anybody know any of the flavors? Mint, it has the mint flavor, chocolate, right? So a lot of inviting flavors we're seeing in our vaping devices. But what other type of chemicals are placed there? Now, we have nicotine, a high concentration of nicotine equivalent to 20 cigarettes. So it has a higher percentage of nicotine placed inside of the tobacco product. So this is why persons are becoming highly addicted. It's cancer causing, there's cancer causing chemicals that is linked to lung cancer, and something called popcorn lungs, right? So there are chemicals that is found inside of microwave popcorn that is also found in the vaping devices that can lend to popcorn lungs. So this is inflammation and fluids building up inside of your lungs, right? We have aldehydes, we have battery particles, because remember, this is a battery powered device. So the particles in the device, sometimes it goes through the aerosol, right? And it enters your lungs and it causes damage to the lungs, right? We have ultrafine particles that can be inhaled deep inside of the lung. So what we're seeing right now is an influx of lung damage, lung failure, asthmatic attacks. We have persons who have nausea, vomiting, chest pain. They are dependent on the vaping device because it has a high concentration of the nicotine. It contributes to respiratory problems such as breathing issues. It increases asthmatic attacks. It can cause lung failure, lung collapse, and fluids building up in your lungs. So this is what we're seeing right now. And we have had instances where the device would have exploded in persons' hands, right? Although when you first use the vaping device, you might have a relaxed type of feeling because of the different chemicals placed inside of the vaping devices, but it's slowly damaging and breaking down your lungs. Because do you think that your lungs was designed to have oils and different chemicals placed inside of there? Right? So you are placing oils and different types of chemicals and toxins inside of your lungs. So you are damaging your lungs, which of course will lead to breathing problems. So now we're going into cannabis. And also in the vaping devices, we also have the THC type vapes as well as the nicotine type vapes. So we have different types of the vaping devices. Now marijuana or cannabis, we have several street names. Anybody know what is the street names other than the ones I have listed here? Any new street names?
Ganja.
Right, so we have ganja. We have ganja, pod, local high grades, right? Mary Jane, Irie, right? I heard Irie. So these are the different names you would hear on the streets, but all of them refer to cannabis, which is marijuana, right? And cannabis has three main types. We have the sativa, the indica, and the hybrid type of marijuana. So the sativa has a high concentration of the THC, which is the tetrahydrocannabinol, and this is the mind-altering psychoactive part of the plant that leads you to feel high. So when you use the sativa version, you feel high, like this is where the high grades come from, right? And then we have the indica version. So the indica has a high concentration of the CBD, which is the cannabidiol, and this is the more calm, soothing chemical that is placed inside of the marijuana plant. So this is what we'll use for medicinal marijuana. Although we use the sativa, we also use the indica for medicinal marijuana because of the soothing effects from the CBD. What we're seeing now is the hybrid marijuana. So this is a combination of the sativa and the indica. We also have noticed that it is more potent now as opposed to 10 or 20 years ago. So marijuana is mixed with cocaine It's mixed with different types of drugs. We also have the synthetic type of marijuana. This is the man-made, laboratory-made type marijuana, which is commonly known as the K2. And I will show you what that looks like, right? So we have the synthetic cannabinoids. And this is what it looks like. It's K2. It's very potent and it's very dangerous, especially for young people. Because can anybody tell me at what age your brain is fully developed?
Mine is
25.
Right? So at 25, right? So if you are below the age of 25, your brain is still on that wonderful journey of developing. And what that means is that the cannabinoids, we have the cannabinoid system. We have the white matter in our brains. And it affects and breaks down the white matter in your brain, right? And it can cause you to have memory issues, concentration, retention challenges, emotional regulation problems, concentrating and having strong coordinations. And this is how it affects our young people, right? So we have different ways that marijuana is ingested. There are different types of ways. So we have the gummies, the muffins, the Sour Patch gummies, cornflakes. A student told me there was lollipops, and this is different ways. So you may see someone with some gummies, and it can be marijuana-infused gummies, right? Or cornflakes with marijuana inside, as this young girl is showing here. So this is the different ways that marijuana is ingested in terms of edibles. Now, in terms of the processing system for smoking marijuana versus ingesting marijuana, when you smoke marijuana, it goes through your blood system very fast and you feel that instant high. However, if you were to ingest marijuana, it takes a longer period of time for your body to properly digest the marijuana. So it takes a slow rate, right, for you to feel the high effect. The duration is about a half an hour. So 20 minutes to half an hour, you will now start to feel the effect of edibles when you ingest marijuana. So some persons may eat more edibles to get the effect, and this can lead to marijuana poisoning, which can cause you to rush to the ER, right? It can cause you to develop symptoms of fainting. You might feel sick, you might feel nauseous, right? Or you may have disease spells. And persons may not be aware of the amount of marijuana placed inside of these edibles, and they may eat plenty edibles, and that can cause them to become very, very ill. So we have long-term and short-term effects. Of course, the first short-term effect is poor memory and ability to learn, or rather your inability to properly process information. So if your brain is still developing and you ingest marijuana or you smoke marijuana, this can lead to memory problems, concentration issues, right? Short attention span. So some students sometimes, or even persons who would have used marijuana for a long period of time, it's very difficult for them to retain information. So you might have a conversation with them right now, and they may forget what you would have indicated to them, because it's very difficult for them to retain information, because the marijuana it damages your brain permanently, right? Especially if you are below the age of 25. If you're over the age of 25, you have a higher chance of not experiencing the brain damage part. Your brain not damaging as a result of using the marijuana plant. Now, in terms of long-term effects, this can, of course, cause breathing problems, right? Of course, memory, birth defects. It may cause cancer, because you're still susceptible to lung cancer if you're using the marijuana, especially if you're smoking marijuana. You can still develop lung cancer, right? So, as I mentioned earlier, marijuana is not legal, right? It's decriminalized. And this means that a percentage of marijuana is considered legal or appropriate for persons who are over the age of 18. But this is 30 grams of cannabis or 5 grams of cannabis resin. You won't be fined or charged if you are caught with this amount of marijuana. And I have like some pictures of what cannabis resin looks like, and the resin is used in edibles as well, right? And this is what potentially 5 grams of cannabis looks like. But if you're found, right, with more than the 30 grams or more than the 5 grams, you are subjected to a fine of $50,000, right? If you are found, right, with not more than the 60 grams, but not more than the 100 grams, but not more than the 14 grams, then you are susceptible to a charge of $75,000. If you are found in any public space, any public setting, using marijuana, having marijuana in your person, then you are subjected to a fine of $50,000. And this does not, so you are not allowed to use marijuana in a public setting. You are not allowed to smoke it on the streets or in spaces that is considered public, right? So you can use marijuana in your homes. So there's a law, especially for schools. If you are found within 500 meters of the school premises, using marijuana, selling marijuana, which is marijuana trafficking, then you are subjected to a fine of $3 million. And this also relates to places that become a school-like environment. So let's say there's a sports day in a field nearby, and you have marijuana, you are selling marijuana, you are smoking marijuana, you are still subjected to the $3 million fine, because this compound would have been identified as a school, because it has persons who are there and who would have occupied this space and converted into a school for that particular event, right? So you will still be fined $3 million. Right? So let's look at our famous drug. And I'm saying famous because this is one of the most used drugs after caffeine in the world, alcohol. So I know that alcohol is not permissible for Muslims, of course, but we cannot say that Muslims don't use alcohol, right? We have Muslims who do use it. So it is applicable to our community. So let's look at what is alcohol. Alcohol is really the chemical ethanol, and it's made when yeast is fermented, right? And it causes sugars in grains, fruits, and vegetables. So we have different types of alcoholic beverages that is sold throughout our country. But what is the health effects of ingesting alcohol? You can, of course, become addicted to alcohol, right? It can lead to breast cancer, especially for women. But one thing I must note is that alcohol have a straight line between alcohol and cancer. So unlike other drugs, if you use it for a prolonged period of time, you can develop these ailments. If you use alcohol periodically or seasonally, you can still develop these symptoms, because there's a straight line between alcohol and cancer and other types of illnesses, right? Such as stroke, heart failure, kidney disease, weight gain, erectile dysfunctions in males, infertility issues in females, right? Of course, memory loss, coordination issues, depression, suicide, throat and mouth cancer. So alcohol really, really affects your liver. Can anybody tell me what they think the liver is for? What is the function of the liver?
That's not one of the filtering process. Anybody?
Yes. So the liver is used to, very good. The liver is used as our filtering system, right? To filter all the toxins in our body. And the alcohol is processed. 90% of alcohol is processed in our liver, right? 10% in our pancreas, 90% in our liver. So if we ingest large amounts of alcohol, this can lead to fatty liver disease or liver cirrhosis. And this is when the cells in our liver is greatly damaged by the amount of the ethanol we are placing inside of our liver. So if we damage our liver, of course, it can lead to challenges in terms of our body filtering the toxins in our blood. And some of the telltales of fatty liver disease is that you're open to drinking more alcohol. Some persons, well, in most cases, develop a large tummy. So sometimes by the bar, you may see persons with a large tummy, but they are small in size. We can determine that this person may have fatty liver disease, right? And this is something that is very dangerous, because it's very difficult for the liver to regenerate after it has been broken down consecutively, right? This is what a healthy liver looks like. And this is what liver cirrhosis looks like. So it's an erosion of the liver. So you would see dark patches and all that. So when we look at drinking, we have to consider how much or what is the percentage of alcohol that is considered binge drinking, right? Or excessive alcoholic intakes. There are different levels depending on the type of alcohol you are ingesting. So let's say the beer, right? So a beer has 5% alcohol, liquor 7%, wine 12%, and alcohol like vodka, whiskey, gin, all these high-end alcoholic beverages has a higher percentage of the pure ethanol or alcohol placed inside of those drinks. So when we're looking at a standard drink for each of these alcoholic beverages, it looks differently, right? So it might look different in terms of the larger drinks like vodka. So 1.5 ounces, right, when be considered a standard drink for wine. I mean for these larger drinks, right, like vodka, tequila, etc. And for women, right, for women, if you were to drink 3 or more standard drinks in a given day, this is considered binge drinking. If a man were to drink 4 or more alcoholic beverages within a given day, this is considered binge drinking for him. So according to research, men have a higher alcoholic intake than women. And it really depends on your size, your metabolism, your weight, your genetics. However, women take a slower time, the body takes a slower time for women to break down alcohol as opposed to men. So men can physiologically drink more alcohol than women. So, women have, and this also looks at your blood count, right? In terms of how much alcohol you can ingest. So if anybody have any questions, feel free to ask questions, all right? And now we're gonna look at drugs, the club drugs. And these are drugs that you will find in large settings. In Trinidad, we have like fetes and house parties and all these different types of engagements. But these drugs are commonly found in these types of large settings. So drugs such as MDMA, ketamine, methamphetamines, and LSDs, these are the drugs that you would commonly find in these settings, although you can find these drugs in different settings like a school or a community event or a wedding or any type of event that has a large gathering of people, right? So this is a drug where we would say, do not leave your drinks unattended because somebody can put something in your drink. Oftentimes, these drugs are colorless and odorless, so we are not able to determine what is placed or if there's anything placed inside of your drink. So when you drink or you ingest these drugs, because some of them come in tablet form or liquid form, and they are very small pills, very, very tiny pills, right? But these are some of the effects of ingesting these drinks. So loss of muscle control, changes in your heart rate, breathing problems, low blood sugar. Now, I want you to pay particular attention to loss of muscle control, because loss of muscle control, it means that you don't have control of your muscles. And what can happen if you have no control of your muscles?
Somebody could take advantage of you.
Exactly, right? So somebody can take advantage of you if you have no control of your muscles, and your heart starts to beat fast, and you start to sweat, right? You start to see blurry, and then you just fall down in this event, and then persons can then take you away. So this is where perpetrators step in. And this is why, in this country now, we have human trafficking, organ trafficking, rape, and all these different types of behaviors, all these different types of things that can happen to you if you were to use these types of drugs, right? Or if you were to leave your drinks unattended and somebody places these drugs inside of your drink. These are some of the effects. So the last drug that I will discuss today is lean. And lean appears to be very popular, especially amongst our young people. So lean, or commonly known as the purple drink or stirs up, this is a combination of Sprite with Jolly Ranchers, codeine or cough syrup, and it has a purple. This is what it looks like. It's purple in color. It's fizzy, and you aren't aware of how it affects your health, because a lot of persons, sometimes they use these drugs in parties. You can also use alcohol in place of the Sprite. I've heard persons use alcohol as well. But what are some of the effects of the lean? So at first you would have the euphoria, and then there's the altered state of consciousness or hallucination. So you may feel as though you're out of this world. Of course, you would feel drunk. It can lead to insomnia. You say staying up all night. Liver damage, of course, because remember, your liver is trying to now filter the ingredients in lean. Seizures, coma, and even death. One of these symptoms is that it slows down your heart rate. So your heart rate it starts to slow down when you ingest this combination of drugs. And this is why it can lead to seizures, coma, death, right? Pain when you're not using it, because remember, the codeine or the cough syrup, right, is used to cure your cough. And if you're using this and you don't have cold, or you're not coughing, or you have no pain, then your body will start to search for pain, right? Because this is what it's there to do. And this is why you have a question? Yeah. So feel free to ask any questions, right? Or for any clarifications if you're not sure. So when we look at social and lifestyle issues, we have to look at financial problems, especially for persons who are not employed. Emotional and relational issues, because of course you are addicted to the substance, so you may require, or you may need time or money to purchase the items, right, and use lean. And of course you can become addicted to lean, so you may need some support with that addiction. Inability to work, it can lead to crime, because some persons, and we're talking about sometimes young people, may not have the finances to accommodate, right, this habit. So they may source out other ways to seek financial aid. Of course, drug seeking behaviors such as doctor shopping. So if Dr. Jeffrey don't give you the cough syrup or the codeine, you might go by Dr. Jane and see if you can access it through him. And this can lead to doctor shopping. And of course, you start to lie and cover up, because sometimes when you have an addiction to a particular drug, you might start to lie and cover things up, because you don't want your friends or your family members to be alert that you are using this drug. So this is why you may start to lie and cover up that you are using lean, especially, right? So I had I literally took this out, but it's here, right? This states that if any man from among my ummah drinks wine, Allah will not accept his prayers for 40 days. So of course we know as Muslims we're not allowed to engage or use drugs or drink, right? But sometimes life becomes really challenging, and we may use these substances to cope with the challenges of life. However, we must be mindful of the health effects that this might pose to us. And of course, by extension, our family members who will have to, of course, work with us for any type of treatment or support. So before we go into the resources section, can anybody tell me why persons may use drugs?
They tend to, well, now among the youths, they tend to use drugs as an escape due to certain traumas that they may have or they will be experiencing, and they have no other way out except drugs.
Yeah. So a lot of the times, young people, thank you for that. Young people use drugs, or even older persons use drugs to cope. Sometimes you are pressured into using a particular drug.
People love to
Excellent, for recreational.
have fun.
Right, yes. So for recreational purposes, peer pressure, you're just trying to test it out, right? So you may use a drug for experimentation purposes. or you might be introduced to certain drugs with your friends. So let's say vaping, everybody's vaping. So you may engage in using a vaping device because everybody else is vaping, right? And this, right? So job loss, grief and loss. Thank you so much for that. So persons may use it because they are grieving and they are overwhelmed with emotions, and it's very difficult for them to really cope and process their grief.
Most people are also under the influence that smoking is not haram. They believe it is lawful. Because if a learned scholar would never tell you that smoking is haram.
Yes. So some persons may think it's permissible and they may engage in smoking or drinking or any type of drug-related habits. But I want you to be mindful of how these drugs affect your health. We have drugs that is not, as I mentioned earlier, is not illegal, but it's very dangerous. So a lot of persons may use energy drinks and think, well, it's just an energy drink. I need to increase my energy level, so I will use energy drinks. But it has a high concentration of caffeine, which is very dangerous in terms of its stimulating type of drug, right? And if you continue to use this drug, then you can become addicted to caffeine type products such as coffee, teas, energy drinks, but especially coffee and energy drinks. I've heard a lot of persons become addicted to those types of drugs, right? But if you are coping with your stressors and you are using drugs to cope, then think about how much stress you are placing on your organs. So let's say, so we had a person come in, right? Because I would have worked with Ministry of Health, and we had someone come in with mouth cancer. So this woman had a big hole in her mouth and she couldn't eat. And she developed mouth cancer as a result of smoking cigarettes. And this means that this particular individual cannot eat through her mouth anymore. Doesn't that sound stressful? Doesn't that sound overwhelming? Right? Yeah. So sometimes when you are using these drugs to de-stress, you are also increasing your stress levels because you are developing more ailments that would cause more stress upon your body and your organs, right? And it might be very difficult for you to cope with those new developments as opposed to the one that you was coping with. So think about that when you are using drugs, right? Think about that, right? And Brother Rochford would have said it's considered macro, right? Based on the harmful effects further down the road. Yeah. So it's strongly suggested that you stay away from using those types of substances. So we have resources, right? So on the Ministry of Health website, under public e-services, we have under the National Alcohol and Drug Abuse Prevention Program, we have the Drug Treatment Information Request Form. And this form is you can fill out the form and provide your information. You don't have to put the name of the person, but you must leave a contact number so that the organization can contact you. And a little details of the presenting issue. So you can indicate that the person is using tobacco or alcohol or cocaine, and this organization will provide you with the resources to support them. So we have rehabilitation centers, smoking cessation clinics throughout the country. There are the Narcotics Anonymous groups, the Alcoholic Anonymous groups. So we have resources for persons who are using substances, right? Or who are addicted to a substance. We are moving away from referring to anybody as drug addicts and these types of labeling terms. And we want to focus on persons who are addicted to a substance. So because you're addicted to a substance, it does not mean that you are an addict. We don't want to label you as an addict, right? You have a problem, you are not the problem, right? So we're going to separate you from the problem. We also have the quitting smoking apps. So this is an app you can download on your phone. You can do it today through the Play Store. And this will help you find proactive and healthy ways to quit smoking. And it also have like a calendar. This is what the app looks like, right? You have your community, your reminders, and this will also help you to detox. If you need further support, you can access your smoking cessation clinics in one of your nearby health centers. I will suggest you walk in to book your appointment, or you can call the numbers if you were to get through with those numbers, right? And you can book your appointment. But the Quitting Smoking app, it's free. You can download it today and you can start your journey of quitting smoking. We also have the newly established crisis support directory, which is the Find Care TT. And Find Care TT is a directory of mental health resources. So this is not just for substance use. However, if you are feeling suicidal, or you have depression or anxiety, or any type of mental health service you require, you can access those types of resources free of charge through Find Care TT. And you can Google Find Care TT, and there's a long list of resources to support you. So if you type in depression, you would see support for depression in your area. You will see who the providers are and where they are located. Their contact information is also placed on the site. So all the information is readily available for you, and you can also tap into those types of resources. So we have quite a number of resources for persons who need mental health support and services free of charge. And if you choose to pay, now I must say the rehabilitation centers aren't free. However, some of them, like for example, Rebirth House, they may work with you, but you would have to contact those centers, and they are usually for a duration of 3 months, 90 days. And there's normally aftercare services, or some rehabilitation centers have family type of interventions. So your family can be part of your intervention, group work, therapy, journey, and so forth, right? The Alcoholic Anonymous groups are very efficient, and we have Alcoholic Anonymous groups throughout our country that you can access. And they are very thorough, right? So this brings me to the end of today's presentation. At this time, if anybody have any questions, comments, recommendations, clarifications, you can feel free to do so.
I just want to find out something, Sister Anissa here.
Yes.
With the alcohol, right? What about medication that contains alcohol, wipes, mouthwash, and all these things? What do you advise with that?
Well, it's not that you are ingesting the alcohol, right? So if you're using wipes that has alcohol in the wipes, then that is different to you using alcohol in terms of ingesting the alcohol. So you won't have these health effects because you're not placing alcohol inside of your body. But in terms of it being permissible, because as we saw, it's not permissible for Muslims to use alcohol, then I can recommend that you use wipes that doesn't have alcohol, if you can find those types of wipes, right? So
but what if you're prescribed medication with alcohol in it, like some sort of alcohol base or something?
Well, in terms of your prescription, you can identify that you are on. You can discuss that with your doctor, right, to see if there's other alternative type medications. Because I know some doctors have alternatives, right, or different types of brands that may not have alcohol inside of the drug, right?
Okay.
So you can have that dialogue with your doctor to determine what type of medicine you can use that does not have alcohol as part of the ingredients in the medicine.
My last question, though, you mentioned something about popcorn earlier, on the microwave popcorn, that it contains what? I sort of missed a part of the it contains something.
Diacetyl. We can go back to that, right? Let me go back. So this was vaping, right? So we go back to this vaping. Right, so look at here.
Yeah.
Yes, so this is the chemical found in microwave popcorn. So it can contribute to popcorn lungs, which is inflammation and fluids building up inside of your lungs. And it can cause breathing problems. It can cause lung issues. Because it's the same chemical that is found in popcorn lungs. So we call it, it's the same chemical found in microwave popcorn. So the name is popcorn lungs, but it's really inflammation building up inside of your lungs.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's fluids in your lungs.
All right. Thanks.
But all these ingredients are there so that you will feel more enticed to use the vaping devices. It's just there to kind of add the flavors. So you'll be more encouraged to use the vaping devices.
Okay. Shukran.
That's one.
Assalamu alaikum.
That's
Welcome.
one question.
Concerning the vaping, I missed out some part. I came in late. What is the adverse effects on the vaping and how haram is it? And give me a little, maybe just touch on it a bit more, please.
Sure. So the vaping devices, we can go back. I'm going to go back to vaping, right? So the vaping devices, this is where the user, right? So let me go back to the vaping devices. Okay, so this is, I think I went up. All right, so this is the vaping devices, right? So the user may use different types of vaping devices. We have some that is shaped in a pen form. It looks like flash drives, as you can see, right? But it's a liquid that is heat, right? It's a liquid that the vaping devices heat a liquid into an aerosol that the user inhales. So this is what the vaping devices does. It's a liquid, right? That it has like different flavors. So there are like mango flavors, apple flavors, strawberries. This is the different types of flavors that is placed inside of the e-liquid, right? And the vaping devices. And this is an aerosol. And so it creates a smoke, like a type of vaporized smoke. It's not water vapor, it's a type of chemicalized type of vapor. And in that vapor, there are different chemicals. So it's called the vaping device, but it's really the electronic or e-cigarettes. So there's nicotine equivalent to 20 cigarettes placed inside of the e-liquids, right? We have the diacetyl, which is a chemical linked to lung disease. And this chemical is also found in microwave popcorn. So it has been linked to popcorn lungs, which is inflammation that builds up inside of your lungs. It's cancer-causing chemicals, heavy metals such as nicotine and lead. So these are some of the metals because it's battery powered. So some of the battery particles can enter your lungs through the e-liquids. We have aldehydes, ultrafine particles. So these are some of the chemicals that is placed inside of the e-liquids when you smoke in, right? The vape. So this is why we're saying that the vaping devices or the electronic cigarettes or the e-cigarettes is very dangerous for your health. But it's advertised as a way of smoking cessation. So according to the tobacco companies, this is a way that you can reduce smoking or stop smoking altogether. But we don't have research, we don't have data to determine how the e-cigarettes can affect your health long term. What we're seeing now is the direct link from the e-cigarette to your lungs. So it can cause lung failure, lung damage, fluids building up in your lungs. It can cause breathing problems, nausea, vomiting. The devices have been, it can explode in your hands, right? And these are some of the effects that we are seeing now because we don't have long-term data. We only have like a decade worth of research to determine how it affects your health. But these are some of the chemicals found inside of it. We also have the THC, which is the delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, which is the mind-altering part of the marijuana plant that is also found in the e-liquid. So we have different types of e-liquids. We have nicotine and we have the THC, right? So these are some of the health effects from the e-liquid, right? From the vaping devices. So of course, it can cause harm to the adolescent brain because the adolescent, now at 25, your brain is fully developed. If you are below the age of 25, your brain is still developing, which means you have more white matter in your brain. And the white matter is there for memory, for concentration, for retention, for emotional regulation. And it damages your white matter. And the THC affects the cannabinoid system in your brain. So in terms of coordination, control, and all these different things, you are damaging that, especially if you are below the age of 18, right? So this is why we're saying that the vaping devices is very dangerous for your health because it can damage your brain. And this is permanent damage, especially if you are below the age of 25, right? If you're over the age of 25, then it might lead to other ailments such as lung cancer, breathing problems. It can cause issues with your skin, right? So these is just a few of the challenges that can contribute to your body that the vaping devices can cause, the health effects it can cause on your body if you were to use the vaping devices, right? So did I?
Thank you. Is there going to be a copy of your recordings so I could
Yeah.
forward this?
Yes,
And-
it's recorded.
And so that is being sent to Sister Gail or whomsoever is in charge or something? How do I get that recording then?
Brother Rochford would be
Brother
better suited
Shahid,
to answer.
Brother Shahid is recording it, so he will put it out there, sister.
Okay, cool. Inshallah.
Yeah.
Inshallah,
Sister
yeah.
Masudah, is this
Yes.
why the ingredient in the cigarettes, one of them being tar, that is one of the reasons, like you find smokers have dark lips or gums?
Well, it is one of the reasons, but because it have a combination of chemicals found inside of the cigarette, then it's not just the tar that causes your lungs to develop this dark, mucky kind of look, right? Tar is one of the chemicals, but the tobacco has over 5,000 to 7,000 plus chemicals inside of there, right? So these chemicals, when we combine them together, it can cause tar in your lungs.
No, not in your lungs. I'm talking about, sometimes you're telltale, you see somebody and they have black lips and gums. But they
Yeah.
know they're smoke. That is one of the reasons they have that discoloration in their
Not just the tar. It's not just the tar. It's a combination of different drugs. Yeah, it's not just the tar. Because they are smoking a combination of different types of drugs. Different types of chemicals.
chemicals. Inshallah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum.
Brother
Walaikum
Shahid,
assalam.
Sister Fatima wanted to know how she can get the tape, the recording.
Yeah, I was listening on. All lectures would be posted on the YouTube channel and would be shared on all Jamaat platforms. So hopefully by tonight, I should be able to do all the editing once Zoom does what it has to do, and I would share it, inshallah. Why some folks have the black lips is they tend to smoke the cigarette straight down to the butt. Because I would have known persons who are smoking for years and they have pink lips. Because when a cigarette reaches a certain point, they just get rid of that. No,
that is true. And also it depends on your melanin in your skin as well.
True.
Yeah, so it latches on to your melanin. So it really determines that as well.
Masudah, I have a question about
Yeah.
marijuana black, and that's one of the names of what you know about that? What exactly is that? I think like it's some kind of side effect too that people just kind of eat it or
Right. So black marijuana, so it has different colors, right? Black marijuana, it has the same chemicals as green marijuana. All right. We have different colors. We have pink marijuana, red marijuana. This is just the dyes that they use to grow the marijuana plant. But some persons may say that black marijuana have cocaine or some other type of drug inside of the marijuana. But
yeah, is that true?
Not necessarily. We have persons who grow marijuana plants with different dyes. So they may grow a marijuana plant with pink dye. So then you get pink marijuana, right? Or they may grow marijuana with black dye. So then you get black marijuana. But also we have marijuana that has different types of drugs, formaldehyde. We have cocaine in the marijuana, infused in the marijuana. And we have different types of drugs that they can include, right, in the marijuana as well. So we have like a combination of drugs that some persons may use, but it doesn't have like black marijuana in terms of this is a specific type of marijuana that has different types of drugs in place inside of it. That is just like the color of the marijuana plant.
Because I know persons would have said, like the drug pushers try to put things in the drug so that they can get persons addicted from the first time they use it, and then they'll keep coming back or something. Like, is that something that is possible?
Yeah, because remember, now the potency in marijuana is higher. So there's more THC as opposed to 10 to 15 or 20 years ago. We have a high concentration of THC, which is the mind-altering drug. So when you place more THC inside of the marijuana plant, then you become more high if you were to use the marijuana, right? It gives you this high-grade feeling. So a lot of persons who traffic marijuana, they increase the THC levels, right? And this is why some persons may say marijuana have a more high feeling. And when you add cocaine to marijuana, so marijuana is a depressant or a hallucinating type of drug, then you're going to add a stimulant to that, right? So it will become more stimulating, as well as you may add tobacco in the marijuana. So when you combine all these different drugs, then you have these types of stimulating mixed with hallucinating, well, the hallucinogen mixed with the depressant. So then you have this type of high kind of really, really exhilarating feeling from using the drug, which is, of course, very dangerous. But when you are in a club or when you are amongst your friends and everybody's smoking marijuana and you feel extra high, then this will of course make the drug more favorable. So the person who's selling this drug with a high concentration of THC, they of course will get more sales. So it's really a marketing strategy to increase the THC levels in the marijuana.
And in combination, any of these drugs in combination with somebody who has a diagnosed mental illness, what can be the effect?
So, okay, so let's say you have ADHD, right? And you're using, so we have certain drugs that you can use to support different types of mental health illness, but it has to be prescribed. You have to use it through a doctor. So let's say you're using methamphetamines, right, for ADHD. This has to be prescribed, or you're using the medicinal marijuana, right? So this is the more common one, medicinal marijuana, to aid in terms of cancer, nausea, pain, etc. This has to be prescribed, and it's not the first drug the doctor will recommend to aid you if you need any type of medicine. So let's say you have cancer and you have nausea, and it's recommended that you use marijuana. Now, the medicinal marijuana in that case will be number one prescribed, and it will be suited for your ailment, in addition to other prescribed drugs. So it's not going to be used in isolation. The doctors will prescribe it using other drugs so that it can also help you and aid you in terms of whatever the prescription is, right? But if you cannot just self-prescribe and say, well, I'm going to use marijuana for depression, because you may not know what type of marijuana you are using. Because remember, we have different strains, we have different types. We have the sativa, the indica, we have the hybrid, we have the different marijuana have different potencies. The potencies different depending on
for your mental illness, and then you go and you started use drugs.
Yeah. Well, it really depends on how controlled, because you can become addicted to painkillers, right? If you use any drug, you can become addicted to, but you have to control it.
Disorder.
What is that?
Like a disorder, like bipolar.
Right. So it have like drugs that you can use for hallucinations. And in Trinidad we have Halidol, which is not really one of the drugs that is recommended internationally, right? In Trinidad we have different drugs that you can use for mental health disorders, right? However, you have to have a prescription. You can't use the drug in isolation of a prescription. All right. So, and if you become addicted to the drug, then your doctor will have to support that. The doctor
Yeah,
will have
if
to
one
prescribe
is
another
taking
drug.
medication for bipolar disorder, right? Doctor prescribe medication, but you go on and you just take smoking weed from a regular, drug person. Would it damage your brain further? Like, because remember, bipolar disorder already damages your brain. So,
Yeah.
would the
Well, it
use of
really,
would the use of the drug further damage your brain?
well, it
Or
really
cause
depends on
addiction?
it has so there's some factors that we can consider in terms of brain damage, right? So what is the age of the person, the duration of the drug use, how much drugs they are using, what type of drug they are using in combination with the marijuana. So there's a lot of factors to consider if we are saying that they may develop brain damage, and we cannot say that you can become brain damage as a result of using drug, right? This is one of the potential side effects of using the drug, because some persons may use drugs and they may not develop any type of deficiencies, but you might use the drug and you might be develop heart disease or cancer in your lung, but this may not be the reality for other persons who are using the drug. So you cannot necessarily say that if you use a drug, then it can damage your brain. You cannot say it can damage your brain. If you develop symptoms of brain damage, then you can look into that. But not all drugs respond to people the same way. Everybody is different, and drugs respond to you based on a number of factors, right?
How can
So
you test for brain damage?
how can?
How can you test brain damage?
Well, that will have to be done through your healthcare provider, your physician.
Okay.
Yeah, so you cannot determine if you have brain damage based on using a drug. You cannot self-diagnose.
Okay.
Right?
So you'll have to request that.
Yeah, you'll have to request that.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for the questions. Anybody else have any questions, any burning questions?
I have one.
Yes.
I have a couple, but I have the main one. Therein lies the great debates from the Islamic perspective where the use of marijuana is concerned. Because they have this saying flat out, weed haram.
Yes.
But now we are seeing where chronic illness is concerned. So I will use an example. Lupus, right? Systematic lupus is very painful, right? And some people may develop rheumatoid arthritis. They're living in pain. Now, the cannabis itself would give you an ease up, because the tablets that they're giving you for pain tend to, your body adapts to that over a period of time, yeah? So would you be in a state, well, I know this question kind of iffy for you to answer. Would you be in a state of impurity using cannabis type products? No, you don't necessarily have to smoke marijuana. You have the capsules, you have the rules to drink tea,
yes.
Whatnot. Would you be in a in the local parlance around stand up?
Yes, and you know what I want to say is that we don't have much doctors in Trinidad who are trained in medicinal marijuana, right? So in terms of cannabis and using marijuana products, as you rightfully say, we have teas and tablets. We want to ensure normally marijuana products are used with different types of medications, right? So it's not the first line of medicine you will be prescribed, but if you are prescribed by, you must ensure that this is a medically trained doctor who is trained in medicinal marijuana, because we still have to look at the decriminalizing, we still have to look at the factor that marijuana is decriminalized, right? In terms of the legal implications for using marijuana. We want to look at what is the percentage of marijuana you are ingesting, you are using, right? How is this marijuana aiding you? Is it used with other drugs? are you using marijuana by itself in terms of you labeling yourself or someone labeling you as impure, unpure, right? Then I think that it really depends on why what is causing you to use marijuana. But in terms of impurities, I don't think it will really have I would think you can be labeled that, right? I don't think so. But I'm thinking that if you're using marijuana for arthritis or if you're using marijuana for any type of ailment, then you would have to be guided by your physician. And this physician will guide you using other types of medicine, not just marijuana alone, right? Of course, and before we go to marijuana, there are other lines of medicines that you will be prescribed. And once we exhaust those lines, and we would look into medicinal marijuana. So it's not used in isolation, and it's not used it's used in a combination with different types of drugs, right? So nobody can label you if you are using prescribed medicinal marijuana. That will be my response to that.
Thank you very much. And young persons tend to run towards vaping because of the high nicotine content versus a pack of cigarettes is 1.3 mg or 1.2 mg on the box versus the vaping oils. They have the salts, which is 20, 50, 30, and the regular 9 mg, 6 mg, 3 mg. We have a problem within the Muslim community where you have males and females between 14 to 21. So we reach 25 yet when the brain is fully developed.
Yeah.
Where they start off experimenting. Okay, I want to see what it is. And then they become addicted, or they go through some stumbling block in life and it becomes their coping mechanism. And they become what you would call a lash-up head because they completely fried. How would you, in your field of work, how would you, I mean, this is a whole lecture by itself.
Yes.
But you know, just a snippet. How would you go about dealing with this issue that a lot of people tend to put blinders on? Is that they just don't want to acknowledge that, listen, we have Muslim men, Muslim women, young women are literally battling this addiction.
Yeah. So the first thing I will look at is what is causing this person to use drugs, right? And we have a lot of reasons why young people use drugs. One is experimentation. We have peer pressure. We have coping mechanisms, and this will be classified under negative coping mechanisms. And we have a lot of young people who has a lot of challenges now that they don't know how to cope with it. But the one thing I will do is try to educate our young people on the effects of these drugs. Because when you are exposed to drugs in a street setting or in a school or anywhere, it is normally advertised as, we normally have the positive parts of this drug. So it has soothing effects. It's a herb, right? So we hear things like it's a herb from the land, so it's good for your health. Now, yes, marijuana is a herb, but it has over 400 chemicals that is still, the scientists right now is still investigating the nature of marijuana. So this is why we can't have it legal, right? It's investigating the nature of marijuana internationally. And a lot of young people, they aren't educated in how drugs affect their health, their ability to socialize, their normal social functioning skills, right? And so they may engage in using drugs for a number of reasons, but I would like us to have patience with our young people and see if we can find out the underlying issues and why they are using drugs, what is causing them to use drugs. Because we have young people who using drugs and trafficking drugs, right? And once we're able to determine what is the cause, then we can intervene from a standpoint of informed. Like we are not going to just judge them or label them and have this negative approach towards our young people, but we want to approach them from a place of understanding so that we can educate them in terms of how these drugs is affecting their young developing brain, their young developing organs, right? And how they can use more positive ways and positive outlets such as sports. We have a lot of young people who is very skilled, right? In sports, there's different types of skill sets. We want to encourage them to talk to persons that they trust. Now, this is an experiment I do when I go out in schools. I will ask young people, so tell me, can anybody raise their hand and tell me if you have a trusted adult in your environment that you can talk to when you are overwhelmed and stressed out. And in a crowd of, let's say, 400 students, I will have 10 hands up. And this says something to me. It says that we do not allow sometimes our young people to have safe spaces to be vulnerable and to come to us with any type of challenges they may experience. So some of them don't know or have any type of resource other than drugs. And we have to start to support our young people in a way that they are comfortable having conversations with us. They are comfortable coming to us, because that is the first line. We want to open those lines of communication, right? I had a session with some parents in terms of communication, and some parents don't understand what communication looks like between them and their teenage children. I would have asked them the question in front of their children, and some of the parents would say, yes, I communicate with my child, but when you see the child's face, it's like, no, daddy don't communicate with me, or mommy don't communicate with me. So it seems as though we have an issue with communication, and that is just one issue, right? So communication, what type of relationship you have with your children, what type of understanding. Are we just going to label young people and say, look, he drinking or he smoking, other than what is causing him to smoke, what is causing him to drink, right? And then once we're able to understand what is causing them to drink and smoke, then we can now educate them and provide them with alternatives that is more healthier and more productive. So it really starts with us having that level of awareness so that we can then intervene in a place that can support our young people. Other than that, we would have them drinking and smoking because this is the only way they can cope, and they are socially accepted by their peers when they engage in these types of practices, right? So that is what I will say to that. If anybody have anything to add, you can feel free to do so. But that is my assessment of what you just said.
Thank you very much, Shakran.
You're welcome. Anybody have any?
Wonderful. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you everyone so much for these wonderful questions. We want to have these healthy conversations so that we're able to really support others, support especially our young people and us and some of our family members who might be addicted, right? I want to just say that addiction is not easy. It's not easy for us to stop our addictive habits, but with support and resources, we can definitely provide the best type of resources for our family members who might be addicted to substances, right? And we want to shy away from the labels, because somebody becomes addicted through experimentation or some type of life challenge, right? So when we look at the continuum of addiction, it starts off through either experimentation or some type of life challenge, and the person would have engaged in using a substance just to try it out at first. Nobody starts using a substance with the idea of becoming addicted to that substance, right? According to some people, it can't happen to me. So we have the mindset that things can happen to us. So we may just take a little pull in the vape or smoke a cigarette thinking we won't become addicted to these types of drugs. And then we become addicted because we realize that when we are stressed out, the cigarette is the best alternative, it's the best solution. So we might smoke a cigarette when we are stressed out. We find ourselves stressed out again, we smoke until we become addicted to smoke it. right? And this is how addiction, it's something that creeps up on us. It's not something that we intentionally, we don't intentionally become addicted. We become addicted through experimentation or some type of life challenge, right? So I want you to keep that in mind when we support persons who are addicted. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum. Brother
Welcome,
Shahid, this
Islam.
program, the sister, I will have to commend you, yes, but because your presentation has simplified so much. It was done in the most simplistic way that a baby could understand. And whilst you were doing it, I was saying how good this is for my grandchildren to listen to, ages 9 and 13, right?
Thank you.
So it is, I think this is a program that, Brother Shahid, that you could have for the youths, yes, in Jamaat. Inshallah.
Inshallah. Thank you for the recommendation.
Okay. Welcome.
Yeah, definitely. I can facilitate a session for the youths. I have a youth presentation that is very similar to this one that I can facilitate to the youths. Because I feel like the youths don't have, they don't know, right? They are very unaware of some of these health effects. So it's important that they are aware so that they can make conscious decisions from a place of awareness, right?
Good afternoon.
Good
I
afternoon.
think we need to, for the youths, because when we go in home in a maxi or you say it on the radio that vape is less harmful than cigarettes, you know. So I think we should more educate people on vape and the negative impact it have on it.
Yes, yes, that is true. So that is what the tobacco companies using now, because we have advocated for the cigarette packs. So we place the health effects on the cigarette packs. It's very small, but it's there. So the tobacco company came up with this new and emerging type of drug called the vaping devices. Now, before the vape, approximately 6 years ago, the vaping device did not have all these flavors, right? So the flavors are new. It has been banned in over 30 countries now because of the health effects, especially on your lungs. So I do agree we need to be more educated in terms of how the vaping devices affects our health, especially the rest of our organs that we're not aware of, because we have vape has been out for a decade, which is 10 years, so we can't determine how it affects you in terms of long term, right? So we need to be educated so that we can make better decisions, because the tobacco company is advertising vaping as a way to stop smoking. But when you use the vaping device, you are becoming addicted to the nicotine because it has a high concentration of nicotine. And in addition to that, we have persons who never smoke a cigarette, but they are vaping. So exactly what are you doing, right? So we want to educate our young people because a lot of them never smoke a cigarette, but they are vaping. So exactly what are you ceasing, right? So we really need to educate our young people because it's more of a social type of drug now, recreational type of drug, as opposed to a cessation that can aid you or stop you from smoking the traditional cigarette. So that awareness is important. Right. So we have no more questions, comments, concerns. So I will take this time to thank everyone for participating in today's presentation. I hope that it was informative and you would have learned you would have gained some important information from different types of drugs and its health effects. And you're able to use this information to share it with your contacts, with your children, with persons in your communities, because it's information that can really support and save lives, right? So thank you so much for having me today, right? And you can call upon me if you need any type of mental health support in the mosque. So I will stop sharing at this point, right? Right.
All right, Jazakallah khair, Sister Masudah. I look forward to many more lectures from you, inshallah. So
Inshallah.
we have come to, this is our last virtual lecture for the month of August. All right. Next week, Sunday, we have Maulana Ibrahim Drayton. He would be at the mosque, starting time after Asr Salat. I am begging, I am pleading with the adults, please send your kids, because it's geared towards the youth and what we are facing right now as a society, especially in Trinidad and Tobago. This lecture would be posted again on the Jamaat Al Muslimeen's YouTube page and shared on all platforms. I will also put Sister Masudah's social media contacts. If you are not following her on TikTok, you're missing out. And yeah, so may Allah continue to bless each and every one of you all. Sister Masudah, on behalf of the office of the Imam and myself as the Wazir of Dawah and Public Relations, I want to thank you for giving us some of your time and imparting the knowledge. It was well received. You could literally see the smile on my face, because I'm very happy with what took place today. And again, we look forward to many more lectures, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wassalam.